Good late morning, Brian.
Good ahoy. That's how that came out. I was gonna say ahoy because you were in the Navy, and then I was gonna say morning.
Good ahoy.
It's
Yeah.
like your one joke.
I
Good
totally
ahoy.
accept good ahoy.
And she was like, "What?" I said, "That's my point." And I ran away. That's what happened. Well, good morning, Mike. It is this is live right now, Friday, something.
November 8th.
November 8th, 2024.
I had a gig scheduled for tonight that on my calendar still showed it because I didn't update my stuff correctly. But it was moved to the 9th and then back to the 8th and then back to the 9th. And then they changed venue. And then ultimately it was canceled and rescheduled for May 3rd.
Oh, yeah.
So
Because May 3rd is exactly like November.
Yeah. So anyway, I was not sure if I was even working tonight or not, but I'm not. I'm free.
I am working tonight.
You are?
I am working with the amazing Ron Morey. Now, I know I said that like he's a magician, but he's not. He's amazing, and he's Ron Morey. And we are doing Prescott, the Prescott Valley, I think it's community theater. I can't remember what it is, what's called. They've got a couple names. But anyway, it's a really cute little venue. It seats about 150 people, but it's mom and pop theater, and it's really, really nice. This actually, if you can believe this, it's the third time I've performed there this year. So
really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Two were by accident. This one was on purpose. It's a long story. But anyway.
Just accidentally you thought you were going in the bathroom and you were actually going on stage?
Things happen. You know my life, Mike. Things happen. Are you busy? Come here. That's how it kind of works. So Ron Morey and I tonight, Jamie Anderson will be there. Jamie Anderson will be there. Big old Jamie Anderson, big football coach, wrestling. The guy throws trees. Shouldn't probably be making any fun of him.
And then Highland Games, right?
Yeah, he does. In a full-on kilt, no underwear. He's quite the man. Anyways, then there's and then on the opposite end of that is Matt Santos, photographer extraordinaire. Matt will be hosting the show, and then a couple other people will be doing some guest spots. So yeah, Rick Jean, who you haven't met yet, he's new to the Valley. Saw him a couple times. He's going to be on the show doing a guest spot. So just moved here. Very, very talented comic.
Rick Jean, where's he from?
I don't recall. I had a very brief conversation with him. He was doing Arizona's Funniest Person. What's our contest called? Funniest person
in the universe.
Funniest person in the universe. He was in round 1 or 2. So briefly saw him perform, and then briefly chatted with him. But he's going to be there. But yeah. And of course, last night was round 5. Just so I know we have an election theme going, but last night was the round 5 of the contest, and so
I just want to mention your desk behind you is now reconfigured once again.
Slightly, not much.
And I'm trying to figure out what's different. There's a book.
Yeah,
that wasn't there before.
There's that book.
The football wasn't there either.
Yes, I cleaned out the closet, which is very clean now.
Okay.
The football was a gift from when the older you get, nobody cares. And then I had mentioned something like, I wish I had a football or something. Anyways, so for Christmas I got a football. It's a college football, but it's also a minor football. It's not even a full-size football. It's just it's a peewee regulation size. Like I can throw it a mile. I can throw it over that mountain. I'm Uncle Rico.
I bet you I could throw it over that mountain.
I got more mileage out of Uncle Rico during any NFL season, college season, whatever. Bring out Uncle Rico. Let's see it.
Yeah.
So Mike, anything happened this week?
I seen was there anything in the news this week or anything? It's just a kind of a dead week. Nothing really happening.
Pretty boring week. People woke up, went to work.
I will tell you this: somebody who was affected greatly this week was Peanut.
Peanut. Oh, Peanut.
You familiar with the story of Peanut?
A little, not a lot.
So it became this rallying cry for the right, which is hilarious. But apparently, I mean, the gist of the story is this guy was he rescued animals, wild animals often, and others, but he rescued animals. He rescued a raccoon and
Sure.
adopted it as a pet.
Okay.
He rescued this squirrel and actually brought it back to health. I guess it was, hurt or whatever. He brought it back to health and then let it go, but it just came right back to him. So eventually it became his pet. He could create an Instagram channel for it, just had all this stuff. And this squirrel just loved him, was crawling all over him all the time and all that. Well, the awful evil government came and took the squirrel away because you can't have a wild animal, and euthanized it. So they took the squirrel and killed it. His pet.
In
So
front
that
of him?
became just the huge, giant example of government. Or it's funny because the government has gone into people's homes, taken them out, putting them in jail without trial. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff. But the one thing that really got people upset is, whoa, you can't do that to a squirrel.
Yeah. From what I believe, Mike, and correct me if I'm wrong, that squirrel was here legally though, right?
Yeah. It was a natural born citizen. Yeah.
All right, I'm making sure. The hat threw me for a second, but I thought that's a cowboy
Well,
hat.
there was this whole kerfuffle about, seeing his actual birth certificate and all of that.
Sure.
And apparently at one point he'd lived in Hawaii, but he was actually born, and that's still the United States, keep in mind.
That's a big coconut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he got here. He was brought here by by birds.
Huh, okay.
Yeah.
First class. That's a one-seater right there the whole way. It's a lot of work for a bird, by the way.
Well, it's an African sparrow, not a European sparrow. That's how they did it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that totally makes sense now. Anyway, Mike, your curtain in the back keeps like teasing someone's going to walk out behind it.
I know, it's kind of funny.
I keep thinking like a special guest is coming.
No. Those are my blackout curtains because it's so bright outside that just floods this room with too much light. Plus, it's up near our entryway to our house, and I don't like people looking in behind me when I'm working on my computer.
And contrary to belief, people who are watching this right now, and that's a lot of you, settle down. It is Arizona and it is November, but it's still like today's finally kind of cold, but it's not that cold compared to what other people go through. So
yeah, I mean, our cold, like yesterday, it was like I was pretty chilly. I was outside, but it was in the 70s.
But yeah, I mean, and right now we're only talking. I have 55 outside on my phone,
right
which
now.
is actually cool for us. It really is.
Yeah, that's very cold for us.
But again, the end of the day, it's still going to be almost 70. So okay, 68 today.
Well, we're we spend all summer long complaining about the heat. The longer it goes, and this summer went particularly long, we just wish it would cool off. And finally it has. And it's been cooler now for a couple of weeks, and I am ready for that heat.
And your issue isn't even, to go back to the topic at hand, you're not even worried about the heat. It's too much light because we don't celebrate, and I say celebrate, daylight savings time because we have plenty all year long.
So when you guys, the rest of the world listening is celebrate having their daylight savings parties, we don't do that.
We don't. We go right. We're right at work.
You know why? It's because the pagan origins of it. We just think there's no way. We're not doing that. We're just not doing that.
Here's the thing. This summer I was in Indiana for an extended amount of time, and they celebrate the daylight savings time. And oddly enough, Indiana used to not do it, but there are sections that do it. I was in the section that did it, and I will tell you, man, 9:30 at night, almost 10 o'clock, it's still bright out. I'm like, enough.
Yeah.
Enough. Stop saving it.
Yeah, exactly.
What are we saving it for? And by the way, you can't really save it, Mike. It doesn't work like that. Anyway.
I like the old analogy of it's like cutting off a foot of a blanket and sewing it onto the other end. That's really all it is.
It really is.
It's not the same amount.
Our good friend Dawson, who greetings, by the way. He's in Fallujah. No, he's in Finland. Anyway, Finland had they've got their midsummer, as they call it. I put the accent on there on purpose. Anyway, they they have extended periods where they only have like barely any dark during the summer. And now he's experiencing the opposite right now, where it's dark super early, and so it's messing with him a little bit. So,
yep.
Oh. I'm content here. I know how the sun works, and I know how nighttime works.
I'm content. I feel like we're finally feeling settled in. As far as the seasonal stuff, because once winter comes, it's like there's some changes. You take out different clothes, unpack those from the closet, and put away your summer clothes. Well, not so much. I bring out winter clothes that I don't use all summer, but I still have shorts and stuff summer clothes available because I mean, we still have 80-degree days coming up in the next few months.
Well, to be honest, if we dip sometimes like we do in December, and you get like a day where the high is 55, which is odd around here.
Yeah.
But when that happens in the next couple of days, suddenly we're in the upper 60s. People will put shorts on. You get a little cocky really quickly, and you're like, I'm good. You go wash your car or whatever, and you're like, it's only a couple hours where it's decent like that. And then you're like, ooh, it's cold again. I forgot it's winter.
So, you're right. All right.
Absolutely.
So for everybody interested, you come visit us in Arizona, and don't come in the winter. That's when everybody's here. Come in the summer. Really experience Arizona.
Hang out with us, sweat, drink a lot of water. We'll go eat Mexican food outside, and you'll last 5 minutes, but you'll go, whew, I'm hot, I'm sweating. I don't know if it's from the Mexican food or just the heat. And you too could see a man with just his calluses remove a bottle cap. Talking to you, Rhonda. So anyways, I don't know how we got on that tangent. I apologize if I caused that, but so we've got a euthanize
that was right.
squirrel.
That was right on pattern. We're talking about the election.
I think there was more than the euthanize squirrel this week, Mike.
I can't think of what it was.
Yeah, there was no. I was thinking it was an announcement of the dancers for
Dancing with the
Celebrity Dancing. Sure, whatever the name of that show is.
Dancing with the Stars.
I've become you, and you become me now.
I wouldn't know that, and you didn't know that. Yeah.
I had a late night. I'm still waking up. So, and I'm 1,000 years old suddenly overnight. So, anyways, what were you saying, Mike? What happened this week?
That's all I can think of. Well, as you know, there was an election, and we elected a new board of Arizona Water Conservation Board members.
That's right. So very controversial too.
We're going to see how that's going to play out in our daily lives.
Water is very important here. It's probably the most important thing in the world right now.
It is.
So, but we got that all settled.
I was talking to you earlier, Brian, but I'm going to admit to the public, to the world, that when I fill out my ballot, there are certain races I know and propositions I always vote on. I try to read about them. There's lots of information, but there is a whole page of.
I know where you're going with this, because you just said I fill out all the races I know. Okay, so there's Latino, and there's not Latino, and then one is kind of like more like European Latino.
All the ones I know. There's some of these I've never heard of, so I'm not voting for them. No, I mean I fill out the ballot on the electoral races that I'm aware of, and the candidates I've looked into a little bit. But when it gets to that back page of stuff, like the Water Conservation Board, frankly, or the judges where there's 40 of them and yes or no to keep them, I can't find any information on them or anything. I don't vote on those. I just don't say yes or no because I feel like I'm uninformed, which brings me to the point that I was talking to you about earlier also, that there's a big push to get people out to vote no matter what. And I think look, if you don't feel informed on something, please don't vote on it one way or the other, because the last thing we want is more uninformed people trying to make decisions for the country. So now I'm sure that no matter who you are, you have an opinion on president or whatever, and it may be uninformed. I grant that, but you still feel like strongly on one way or the other. And I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if you really don't know, don't just randomly select things on there.
Mike, that is why they call it the popular vote. Because you know what? We're only how many steps away from the student council?
Sometimes I think this whole country is just run by popularity contests.
President Kardashian today. I know. I'm kidding. That was 10 years ago.
So there was an election. There was an election. We have a new president-elect, which is a repeat of an old president-elect.
So kind of not new.
And people say, he was the 45th. Now he's going to be the 47th president, which is probably true. But there's still a chance that he's the 48th. Because if something happens to Biden, Kamala Harris still becomes the 47th president for at least a month.
And I know for a fact that, Mike, you've been watching Veep. So you know that these things are possible.
I do have. Oh, my gosh. That show, if anybody who hasn't watched Veep, the language is way too spicy for some. It's saucy, but it is
Saucy, it's
the
salty, it's
most
spicy.
hilarious show. Now, keep in mind when you watch it, if you do watch it, keep in mind this was all created before Kamala Harris came into office at all.
That's what I'm saying. How in the world is a biography done before?
Yeah, but it nails that presidency to a T. And I've heard lots of people say from in Washington D.C. and politicians say that show is pretty realistic, way
Like,
more realistic than like the West Wing was.
The West Wing. That's the funny thing, that is a lot of people, a lot of politicians have said how more accurate Veep was
Yeah,
than any political show they've ever watched.
yeah. But the writing on that is just every episode
Yeah.
is just one laugh after another. It's hilarious.
I tell people though, it is a clinic in cussing.
It is.
The,
It is.
the combination is just like, wow.
And the
Never heard that
put downs, the
Put-
put downs
yeah.
are just
Yeah.
just insane.
It's like watching a political roast the whole time.
It is.
You know, what's great about that show too is it doesn't really get into any real life politics. It's just, it's, you know,
Yeah.
within the world, it's the world of the show's
It's-
politics.
And it's not even it's hard to even kind of gauge, you know, what side of the aisle these people are on really or anything, and they don't really
Yeah,
talk
true.
about it, which is a great thing about it. It's it's really funny. It's a great show.
You know, I think the worst episode was the one where they had Kramer come in for the filibuster. But other than that, it was oh, I got something to say. Water conservation.
Sue has the president called? No.
Who is it? Jerry Seinfeld, come on up. This guy. Secretary of State, come on up. Yeah. That show actually for her, Julie Louis-Dreyfus, am I saying it correctly?
Yeah.
So English is a first language for me. Anyway, she just total departure for the Seinfeld thing. You know, everybody always talks about the Seinfeld curse or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. My favorite was the Saturday Night Live's curse. Oh, a lot of cast members are dying. Yeah, the show's been on 50 years. People die. It's not a surprise, you know. Oh.
Let's see. Oh, that's another thing. I think since our last broadcast, I celebrated my 60th birthday.
Yes, the last broadcast, by the way, was what, June of 1997. It's good to be back on the air.
It's
yeah, belated happy
our
birthday.
10th anniversary show in 1997. That's right.
Yeah.
That was our last one.
So, Mike, you've turned 60. You dodged everybody here, and you left. You went to Oklahoma.
I did. I didn't want to celebrate with amongst my friends. No, my son and his family live in Oklahoma, so we were out there for that. It was fun.
As far as I know, from what I've read and I've seen in movies, Oklahoma 60 is like 103.
That's right. That's right.
Did you whittle on a porch? What were you doing? Playing a jug? I'm sorry. I love Oklahoma.
My son plays the jug. I play the saw. So.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's funny when I hear Oklahoma. This is what's funny. A lot of people, you know, they would call people from Oklahoma Okies back in the day, right? Probably. I'm assuming not a term of endearment. Probably.
I don't know.
I mean, if you think about the song, he's just an Okie from Muskogee, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, but this is funny. This is a weird cultural thing. My dad, okay, my Japanese father, farmer, has got his buddy, and he would use the term interchangeably. He would say, "Oh, that guy's an Okie," meaning he's from Oklahoma. And then I'd also hear, "Oh, I got to call Okie," and I thought he was talking about the same person for years until I got older, and I realized he's got a buddy of his whose last name was Okabayashi, and he would call him Okie.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
So I thought first time I saw Okie, I'm like, that guy's not from Oklahoma. You know, clearly a Japanese man. So yeah, he's
from Okinawa.
Okinawa. Like, look at these Okies.
Yeah, they're the Okies of Japan.
Okie. So okie dokie. So yeah. So Oklahoma was good. You spent some time with your son and you have 4 grandkids out there. Is that correct?
Yep, 4 grandkids. My daughter-in-law, of course. So it's interesting. It's interesting because they have, we grew up. I raised my kids in a Christian home and all of that, and he's still very Christian, but he's really adopted the Old Testament traditions of things and has become very Jewish. I mean, he's still is Christian, but he's a Messianic Jew, but kind of Orthodox Jewish at the same time. So they do everything very kosher and all that. In fact, one of the things that happened while we were out there was my granddaughter's bat mitzvah. So we were part of that. It was pretty cool. It was fun. It's very interesting finding out more about some of the traditions and the things that are more. I mean, I know a lot of Jewish people, but most of them don't follow the Jewish faith very tightly. And but he does. He tries to do a very good job of it, and it's very interesting.
Huh. Yeah, I did not know that. I knew a
little
bit.
They have a whole kosher chicken. They have a kosher kitchen, which is there's tons of rules about how to have your
first. There's a brisk. There's a brisk for the turkey.
We did have a brisk already there.
Oh, well, that's cool.
It's pretty good. It's always interesting visiting him out there because of that. But yeah, we had a good time. Good time. Yeah. It's funny because in Oklahoma, it's known for being windy.
Okay. The
wind comes blowing down the plain, Oklahoma. And it is, but you think, well, it is windy. And it is. You get out there, it's open plain. It's just very windy out there normally. Unless you have kites you want to fly, then the wind immediately stops completely.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. I don't know why. Huh. We've done that several times. It's always, we go to the park or whatever. It's like, man, it is so windy. As soon as let's get some kites. Okay. No wind.
I just picture you standing in a field by yourself and like holding a kite, and you're much like Chris Farley and Tommy Boy. Really could use some wind.
Just what I feel like. So when you have a kite and there's no wind, you have to run with the kite.
Yeah.
So we do that, and
keep running.
Yeah, there's no wind to it. So anyway,
so Mike, when you said you'd gone to Oklahoma to see the grandkids, all I could think of in my mind was, well, going back to the politics, was like this chart of the United States based on where your kids are and bringing up the numbers per county.
Yeah,
this is like I got 32 grandkids here, and then going back to Maricopa County, just on the outskirts.
when we're planning our year, that's what it looks like. We're doing a political chart. Yeah.
And if you look in this region, I love that. Going back to the politics now, mastering those boards, watching the reporters go through. And if you look in Sussex County, if I can bring it up right here. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Right here in this county, it's just like they got it down to the 18th kind of whatever.
Oh yeah,
it's just insane now.
And people with unibrows have really shifted political parties this year, and it's like nobody cares.
Yeah,
nobody stop doing it. Stop.
Well, it definitely raised some eyebrows. Back to you, Gene.
Ba-dum-bum.
I like. I was flipping through the channels, watching the coverage because I'm just always very curious to see how everybody's. Let's call it storytelling.
Yeah.
I don't want to say reporting all the time, but NBC for some reason they were like outside on the roof, and every time the one lady on the end, she had to like run inside to this map and then run back in. I thought you couldn't have planned this better for somehow.
What
so
channel
weird.
was that? I think it was on Fox. I was watching some of the coverage, and to be honest, I went to a couple. There's a couple YouTube channels I watched that were just not broadcast because they were just keeping up to date with everything, and that's what I wanted to watch. Most of the news channels were just kept going off to these weird interviews of people and stuff, and I didn't care about any of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was watching some of the broadcast stuff off and on. So when I was on Fox, I noticed they did a really cool job. Speaking of guys working the touch screens and they did a really cool job with I would say it's called alternate reality. What is that? AR, VR, whatever. Anyway, they superimposed the graphics into where they were. And usually it was just, this fake, screen up front. He'd like point to stuff that I know that's being imposed on the screen, and he's just looking at a monitor to do it. But he did a pretty good job. But then there was a few where it was like these big 3D graphs that came up, and it's like it looked like it was in the studio with him on the floor. I thought, man, that was pretty cool looking. But I can't think of the guy's name, the anchor that does that stuff, but you can tell he spent weeks learning how to use this software and how to interact with it.
You say that, and I will tell you that if you watch like the NFL on channel on Fox, yeah, they've got those 3D sets and everything else. They've gotten very good at it over there.
Yeah.
ABC,
ABC, I think they use Microsoft Paint for most of their graphics.
Dude, for one, I was watching it going, first of all, everybody is overlit and underlit. So the older you get, you'll see they will underlight to try to blow out all the shadows they can. Everyone was like doing this, like trying to they got their big table like they normally do. They've got it's kind of like it's like The Last Supper is what it looked like, but underlit. And then but in front they kept doing a 3D graphic too that come up out of the floor kind of thing. That was kind of cool. I think I was bouncing around quite a bit, but yeah, it's just very interesting. Watching electoral votes too. Some of them are higher, some of them are lower. Some are willing to give it too early.
Yeah, I felt like everything I watched, everybody was getting all their information from the same source. I think it was the AP, because it seemed like everybody called everything exactly the same time. There was no divergence. And it's amazing to me after all this time how the polls were still wrong. I mean, not that you expect them to be exactly right, but there's a few of those polls that are like, whoa.
Yeah.
They're way off.
I was going to say that CBS, I think there's still some residual effect from Dan Rather. I felt like they were very cautious. They didn't have a lot of people on. They weren't talking to a lot of people. Not as much as all the other stations had 20 people on that desk, and then CBS, I think, only had a couple, but Dan Rather, I remember he kept calling. What was it, Texas back in the day? What was that? Anybody remember? Anyway,
for who?
I can't remember. He called it early and he was wrong.
Oh yeah.
I'm Dan Rather. I should retire at this point. It's funny. I used to do impressions of the guys, but they're all gone now. Tom Brokaw. They didn't even drag Tom Brokaw out this year.
No.
Usually they, hell, looks like Mississippi will go for Donald Trump. What? Milk and cookies. Yeah. Yeah. None of them brought out their old guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Fox had, what's the old guy's name there? Is it Ed Hume? Is it? No, that's not who it is.
Oh, Brit Hume?
Brit Hume. Yeah. He, I'll tell you, I mean, I felt like they went to him a couple times and they'd show the map or whatever. And then he would make some comment that I just thought he had some intelligent stuff to say, but he also at times was like, hey, it looks like there's, people say there's the red over here and it looks like there's a conservative movement. And it's like it's just nonsense kind of weird.
Hey, that's your Norman Macdonald impression. It was just quieter. Yeah. O.J. Simpson.
It's funny there's certain media elements that are super, super biased, like just way over the top bias. I'm trying to think of one. Let me think. What would be one? But anyway, like just way over the top. Not even anybody who watching it has to know, okay, this is just pure propaganda from one side.
Yeah.
And there may be on both sides, but there are a couple that are just like so over the top. And so I never watched them because it's just irritating. And I thought, I'm going to see what they're saying about this election because it didn't go the way they wanted. Yeah. And, but even still 3 minutes in, I go, oh my gosh, I cannot watch this. It is so awful. Oh. They're just poisonous horribleness.
Talking about quote the media, I thought was very interesting and very telling, I think, in this election too, is, the simplicity of Trump going on Joe Rogan and the other podcasts. To me, whoever was on his team was very forward thinking to say, television is dead and we've got to figure out how do you reach these people. So that's what you do. You go to the podcast. He went to the younger, everybody's talking to the Joe Rogan bro effect and all that kind of stuff. That is one part of it, but understanding how to get the message out, and Harris didn't seem to really I mean, her one shot was the SNL thing, was really about the only thing that was a marker of like, oh, that was a big moment, in terms of the pre-campaign stuff.
Yeah, and if you consider, the which one would be more effective, obviously Joe Rogan is. For one, I mean, the viewership of SNL is, like all television, is super
It's
low
not what it
because there's
used to be.
so many options to watch, so that people aren't just all huddled around the same thing anymore. But Joe Rogan, I mean, I've seen statistics where it shows one of his episodes gets more viewership than all the broadcast television for the entire day.
Correct. And
I
despite
mean,
the fact that an SNL is 10 years ago, that's the way you would reach,
right, right.
And not that the clips don't go viral too, but it's a sketch. It's short-lived. It's maybe 5 minutes, right?
Yeah,
And
she was on 1.8 minutes or 1.5 minutes or something.
okay.
They were very clear to say that NBC is trying to defend itself for breaking the
So,
law.
well, take that into consideration versus 3 hours on Rogan or whatever. Trump was on Rogan for what? At least over 2 hours.
Right.
But there's no information coming from Harris at that point being on SNL.
Right,
It's just
right,
the tip
right.
of the hat, It's that
Yeah.
making a live appearance thing when I paid tickets. I paid for tickets, to see Steve Perry. That's not, there's a picture of him on the video screen. That's it. So I just find that really fascinating that moving forward, I think all elections, you're going to start looking, you're going to see that more.
I was just looking up. So Joe Rogan in the first day in the first few hours he had 27 million views on that Joe Rogan podcast.
On the YouTube.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that's just on YouTube. That doesn't even count Spotify and the other platforms he's on.
I just wanted to finish my sentence. I was going to say on the YouTube channel he has. I didn't want you thinking I was calling it the YouTube. I'm not an old man. Anyway, because I think by the next day it was like 36 million, and I'm not even sure what it's up to now.
Yeah, and that's just on one channel, and
that's
on one platform.
Exactly. The Spotify numbers, I who knows?
Yeah,
what that was.
I was trying to find what the viewership for Kamala's
SNL.
Yeah, and it was, of course, nobody knew she was going to be on it, so it's not a super fair comparison.
But again, that clip's going to get released that night. People are going to clip it out. They're going to clip it out. It's going to get out there. I love the fact that if people tried to clip it out on their own, NBC would tag it and they'd have to remove it.
Yeah.
So publicity is so counterintuitive.
So it's funny because I've seen several articles that, Saturday Night Live, the mainstream, not that Saturday Night Live is part of really the mainstream, but they're part of NBC. Mm-hmm. Their biasness and all that, and people accept that. And even SNL, we've had our discussions about that. It's hard for me to watch because I feel like they're so biased and all that. But every once in a while, they at least try to pretend that they, go both ways, whatever. But I've seen a lot of interviews where they say Lorne Michaels just destroyed his legacy. He just completely said, nope, we are now going to be a mouthpiece for a party. And I think to a degree that I don't think it's that severe, but I think to a degree that has some weight. He should not have done that. That was a huge mistake. Well, as far as his reputation and his integrity.
Where they used to be, I thought, fairly balanced early on. It was just go after the person.
They used to go after the current power administration, whoever's in power, the people in power. Now they don't, and then they haven't for years. They just go after, they go after one side if they're in power, and then they keep going after that side even when they're not in power.
I think the difference between you and I, though, is, and I think you'll agree with this, Mike. We're friends, right?
Yeah.
I watch SNL strictly for entertainment value, and when it comes to the politics and stuff, I laugh sometimes in the way like they think they're so right and they're not. Same thing when I've watched Bill Maher for years.
Yeah.
And there's no secret. I don't think there's a secret. I'm conservative, but I definitely, I would think, would lean more middle for the people that know me and talk to me. But it's one of those things too where I always I watch Maher sometimes and go like, oh my gosh, the opinion of that the opinion of the left is just very funny sometimes. And Maher's not even, I don't even think Maher's left anymore, man.
Well, I think he's where he's always been. I think the party moved so far left that he's left. They've abandoned him, which I think is true with most of the people that I know that are, would consider themselves Democrats or liberals.
It's funny, as he's gotten older, and
left with them.
He's close to 70 now. Yeah. The new next generation, they don't view him the same way, all of us did, watching him over the years. Now they just see him as an old fart. You know what I mean? It's just
I like, what, one of the things I liked about 30 Rock was that they made fun of the right a lot, but they made fun of everything pretty much. Yeah. But the whole persona and the character of Alec Baldwin's character in there was this right-wing guy, but they made fun of it a lot about how he has secret meetings with the secret society and whatever it was. I liked it though, because it was funny, it was lighthearted, it was funny. And also to me, it kind of made fun of the left in the sense that this is the humor, this is how the left sees the right, which is just so idiotic and insane.
I completely agree with you, and I will piggyback on that. And this was on at the same time, was Colbert Report.
Yeah.
So Stephen Colbert, when he had the character of being a conservative versus now, I mean, it's a complete,
yeah.
I mean, and I know Colbert Report was was a parody and he was doing it and that, but it's interesting that all the talk shows the other day were just mournful. It's like you forget
you saw Kimmel crying.
Well,
after he berated Trump for being a wimp, then he started just going into tears.
I just think the thing is, though, these guys have to stay in their lane too and realize that they're talk show hosts and they're there to entertain. At the end of the day, that's like I always joke about the thing I think that's always so funny about Bill Maher is you go through 1 hour of political talk followed by, okay, that wraps it up for tonight. I'm going to be at the Chuckle Hut in Oklahoma City. Yeah. Come see me. It's like, reminder, he's a comic first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, granted, he's not an idiot too, but that show is not meant to be news. It's informative, but it's not.
It can be, but you have to remember, even the Daily Show, when Jon Stewart was doing that before, that was the original label of fake news. They called themselves fake news. That was fake news. They called themselves that. That term later was adopted for other stuff, but
it definitely was Weekend Update.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a parody of the news, but it became the main news source for a generation of kids. They literally said their main source of information was their Daily Show, and it's like, no, you guys, you don't understand. They're joking. They're kids. It's not real, but they don't know.
Yeah, I always had this thought years ago, and they kind of did it in a movie with Robin Williams. But I always thought it'd be great if they did a movie where it was just like, hey, we're gonna take a political comic and run him for president. It's like somebody would decide, like, let's take Bill Maher, let's run him as president. But then the right goes, no, we're going to run Dennis Miller, right? Yeah. So regardless, the debate's going to be fun, right? Yeah. And then it truly becomes a popularity contest with everybody trying to pull the strings of these guys, which is not much different than what's going on a lot behind the scenes in politics. Anyways, Man of the Year, Robin Williams, which turned out to be. Did you see that movie?
Yep.
Very interesting.
Yep.
I mean, it really wasn't a movie about that. It ended up being about the electoral vote, not the electoral vote, the electronic. You see where the mistake came from. But you know what I mean? And that one I always laugh too, because the problem in the software was the double letters. It was LL for Miller. The other one was Robbins or something like that. So they all had double L's in the thing, and it alphabetically distinguished somehow.
It's funny because Arizona this year, as you know, really propped up the fact that we're going to have just great elections this year. It's going to go so smoothly, and we've got these machines and this electronic stuff, and so everything's going to be perfect. And and I'm not disputing that maybe everything is being counted great and near perfect or whatever. I don't know, but I find it funny that they promoted that so much, and to this day we still don't have results.
Yeah, we're still. It's Friday now.
For those of you not aware, Arizona and Nevada, I believe, have still not reported in their final results for any of their elections.
And in case you don't know much about it, between like if you've never been out west, Nevada is just like a slutty Arizona.
Yeah. Nevada is to Arizona what Reno is to Las Vegas.
Yeah. And then Mexico is kind of like our half brother who just came to live with us.
New Mexico is our crazy uncle that nobody really talks to.
I mean, they are older than us, but yeah. Underdeveloped. I think I went on stage one time because I just got back from New Mexico. I came back home, and my first line was, "I just got back from New Mexico, Arizona's ugly sister," and that got kind of a cheer.
Yeah,
from the audience.
Yeah, I was in New Mexico, driving back through there from Oklahoma a couple of weeks ago, and did a show in Tucumcari.
Okay.
You familiar with Tucumcari? Tucumcari.
Tucumcari.
They would be mad if they heard me say that. It's Tucumcari, not Tucumcari.
I'm sure we can.
Those people get more upset by mispronouncing the name than people down in Tucson.
That's crazy.
They were very, very adamant about how their name was pronounced. But anyway, it was a fun little show. It was interesting. It was in their little theater they have there. Seats about 100. You know, I didn't realize this, but this is on Route 66. This theater, I think, was built in the 40s. Had its heyday in the 50s, that kind of thing. But, you know, back then, when probably more than a little bit when we were teenagers, part of the movie experience was possibly making out with your girlfriend in the back of the theater.
Sure.
This theater had love seats in the back rows. The back 2 rows were love seats. And I thought, they actually encouraged it.
Oh, wait. Did it have curtains?
No.
Mike, this may not have been a regular theater. I performed it was called an adult theater. I didn't see any kids.
Well, I know it was a real theater because as my show was ending and I was wrapping up, the owner of the theater said, "Hey, if you want, you for free, you can stay and watch the late show of Venom 3." Really? Okay. It's true. I was
welcome to Venom 3. But first we have comedian Michael James.
That's right.
Mike, take it away. I did stand up before a premiere of a film once.
Did you really?
It was a premiere. It was a local premiere. Not even premiere. Preview. Okay. Sneak preview of that movie, Bad Words.
Oh, that was a great movie.
Yeah. So I was there, and they said, "Yeah, just do about 10 minutes or whatever." And I said, "Okay." And it was the night after the Oscars, so I had some fuel. That 12 Years a Slave movie had just won. Yeah. And the director was Steve McQueen. And I'm like, when I was a kid, Steve McQueen was white, but I'm glad to see he's moved on to directing. He's doing great. So
I just realized the movies that we've expressed admiration for, Bad Words being one of them, was a great movie. And Veep, not a movie, but a TV show. They're pretty colorful language. Just to be clear, I also liked Up. And I just
nice
want to be able to get the wrong idea here.
I also love Benji, The Return of Benji, The Rise of Benji.
Benji Goes Downtown. I liked all those. They were great.
How can you not keep that line? I mean, I know they tried to bring back Benji at one point, but come on.
Did they?
Remember we used to have movies like, remember Lassie and Rin Tin Tin and then Benji?
Yeah.
Remember Chomps?
There was a movie called...
Remember Chomps about the robot dog?
Never saw it.
Oh, the Disney.
There was one about a dog that played basketball, though, I think.
Oh, that was Air Bud.
Yeah, Air Bud.
Well, there's Air Bud. It started off as a football movie.
Oh, was that football?
He was a receiver. Yeah, he's played all the sports now. And Air Bud golf didn't go well, though.
Was it Air Bud and then Basket Bud?
Basket Bud, probably. It's probably, yeah. But yeah, the dogs have to do insane things, People, you ever see those clips people run? I just see it in memes all the time. From the Shaggy DA.
Yeah, I remember the movie. They would show. They're like, somebody said, like, I really miss
I really miss practical effects. And it shows the dog, and the dog gets up, and then it's obviously a guy in a dog suit punching the guy, and then the dog runs down the thing, and then it slides down a rope.
Yeah.
I mean, that was fun back then. It was ridiculous.
It was
Ridiculous. It was what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But
even then, it just goes to show you, even then, you allowed yourself the disbelief or the belief that that's your suspended disbelief.
Suspension of belief.
You allowed yourself to think that's the dog doing this. I'm in on this movie. I'm not questioning it. I'm not thinking about there's a guy in there all sweaty in that suit, because it doesn't matter. The level of effects to a degree are not. Yeah. They can be very immersive for sure, but at the same time, as long as the story's good, nobody cares. The problem is
people don't get there anymore. The problem is now everybody's a film expert, right? Yeah. And so everybody sits back and they go, "How was the movie?" They go, "The effects were terrible."
Yeah.
Well, how was the movie though?
Yeah.
I couldn't get past the effects being terrible.
But you know what I find though is, had they just done it the right way, like you remember The Mummy 2 or something, I think it was, with The Rock.
Yeah.
Those effects were so bad, and they were distractingly bad, not because of anything other than it looked like they kind of didn't really try. They're like, "You guys are so stupid. We're just going to put up these horrible effects."
Scorpion King.
Had they done it practically, or even had the guy, standing there with a scorpion tail on him, in practical effects, it would have been fine. Nobody would have complained.
Or
remember CG.
Remember the old days of the Sinbad movies where it was all stop frame animation?
Yeah, I love those. I love those movies.
Sinbad and the Seven Seas. Sinbad Goes to College. That was a good one.
What was the one?
I mean, that was also because when we were kids, that was a suspension of belief. It was just like, okay, this is a cool thing. I will say, not to promote myself, but when we do my improv class, first day, I'm like, make believe is gone from you now because you're an adult. That's what I want to see from you. We're pretending. We're going to have some fun.
I agree. Yeah.
And do nonsense, and you and I talk about the silly argument all the time.
Yeah.
Go ahead, be silly.
Yeah.
If we're on the moon, we're on the moon.
Yeah.
Throw logic out.
I think we've talked, like you said, we've talked about, but I think that's something we've been missing in American humor and comedy. I think generally in the West, but that just the silliness. It's okay. Let's do something silly. Let's do the Ministry of the Silly Walk. Let's do silly stuff that's just silly and it can be fun and hilarious.
Yeah, and if you can't get past that, that's very difficult when you're doing improv. But I also think the audience needs to lighten up too and realize you go to a comedy club, you're just going to relax. You're just going to have a good time. Same thing with going to a movie. Guess what? Those aren't real superheroes. Let's just enjoy it for what it is for the moment.
Yeah.
You ever see those films? My son always shows me these films that were made in like these small villages, in Africa or someplace and they only have whatever. They're lucky they have a computer, and they're lucky to be able to do what effects they can. And they're the production value is horrendously bad. But these are people who love it. They have a passion, and people watch it. And I don't know, you can get behind the fact that like, this is great. This is fun.
Yeah, there's a couple guys I know that I've seen their films, a couple guys in Africa, and they put out a lot of stuff, and they're short. They're like 5-10 minutes, some of them, but they're fun and exciting. The first, what was the first Desperado movie? I can't think of the name of it.
El Mariachi.
Robert Rodriguez. El Mariachi. That movie is very low budget, and if you look behind the scenes, and even if you watch the movie, you can tell, okay, this was not really
$7,000
first version of it before it got financed. But it's good storytelling. Good. It was great. It was a fun, exciting adventure movie.
$7,000, and it. I can't remember, the second one was a $5 million budget at the time. Was a lot.
Yeah, they got picked up by who was it?
Columbia bought the first one.
Yeah.
Columbia bought the first one and spent $300. See, now you're my geeky thing. $350,000 to take the original 16 millimeter film and then bump it up. Yeah. And I think they spent another $5 or something like that to,
So did they reshoot any of that? Because I've seen the original, and
there's a few edits in the original.
Okay.
And the original El Mariachi one.
Yeah.
Then after that, then it was like the book Rebel Without a Crew is
Yeah.
Robert Rodriguez's book about the making of El Mariachi, which I have in my house somewhere. But he finances himself by doing those medical experiments, you know?
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember.
When you
Yeah, I
go
remember him saying that. Yeah.
for 30 days, and he said they would literally take a chunk of your skin out, and then they would inject you with some stuff periodically, and then you did that for 30 days, and you got $2,000, and you did it like 3 times.
There's a few stills and I think a couple little home videos of behind the scenes of that first one. But I remember seeing one of a guy holding the camera in a wheelchair because that was their dolly. They had a guy sitting in a wheelchair and they just wheeled him down the road to get the dolly shot.
Yeah, it's I mean, when it comes to guerrilla filmmaking and all that kind of stuff, there's so many things that can be done, and I mean, granted, when I was coming up and I wanted to do films and all that, it was difficult. I mean, it was very difficult because film costs money, and then you have your shooting ratio. You only get 6 takes because if you do 10, 20, you're out of film.
Yeah.
And you got to go. You just couldn't do that back then. Now everybody's got unlimited. Now, if you're a filmmaker, there's no excuse for you to go do it now if you want to go do it.
Right.
The only thing that lacks is trying to find a crew. It's funny. My son's going to film school right now, and I keep telling him the problem he has is very similar to me in that I wear 900 hats during production. I always have. You can't make a film by yourself. You just can't. You can, but it's very difficult to do it. And my son, that's why I keep encouraging him, make your friends, build your crew, work with these guys, become friends with these people. That's what I used to teach when I was at ASU teaching. Same thing. Network with everybody and do it because you can't do it by yourself.
It's actually a bit like stand-up. You don't need a crew of people, obviously, but if you're going to work together to write and stuff, it's not just other people that are good at their job. They have to have a similar vision to you. They have to have a similar understanding. Because if you're going to put together a film and you get your lighting guy just doesn't have the same sensibility you have as far as how you want it to be,
right?
Then the tendency is, well, I'll just do my own lighting. Well, then also I'm going to do my own editing, and also I'm going to do my own, everything else. But in comedy is the same way. You need to be, if you're going to sit and write, it's good to have diverse, approaches to the writing. But at the same time, people need to know who you are in order to help you write. There's jokes that you and I have talked about where it's like, that'd be great for you, not for me, and vice versa. Our comedy is similar in our sensibility, but still there's jokes I've given to other comics that I know there's no way I could do that joke. It's just not, it doesn't match who I am or what I would do.
Problem is the delivery style.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's like, we used to get, certain people that we know would come to us afterwards and go, you know what you should say? And then it would be the grossest thing ever. And you're like, did you watch my set at all?
Yeah.
Like at all did you watch? Why in the world would I suddenly shift gears to that and make the audience go, what?
Yeah. Well, I think the thought is, one, you're up there acting a character, that in most people's opinion, and to a degree you are, but I've had people come up to me after doing a show talking about being married for 30 minutes out of, a 45-minute show and ask me, so are you married, or are you really married, or what? Did you not hear what I said?
Yeah.
I talked about that for half an hour.
Yeah. I still get, well, you're not really Japanese. No, I just made it up. More.
You could prove it to him, Brian.
It's funny though, is in my moving on. I had, so in my class, right, my stand-up class, I'll always talk about, the class has to get to know each other first so we can have an intelligent conversation to their material. Like, if you're a cop, why aren't you talking about being a cop at all?
Yeah.
Or as a cop, what's your position on that joke in terms of where you could really go down that lane or whatever. But knowing who people are, but again, knowing one of my classes, I won't say names, but you were privy to this. I had a student in my class who was autistic and talked about being autistic in their set. And at one point they do get a little dirty, and somebody in class goes, I like it when you got dirty, lose that autistic stuff. And I was like, are you even listening? Like, you just blew off this person's, basically their identity. They want to talk about being autistic. It's because they see themselves as autistic and they want to talk about it. And you're saying like, I like the dirty stuff. Talk about that more. It's like,
but you're right. It's because a lot of these comics, they think these jokes are siloed little things. That's a joke. But in reality, when you're really performing, this, you're you're showing who you are or a personality to them. So over time, there's jokes I can do toward the end of a set that just wouldn't hit very well at the beginning because they don't know me yet.
Yeah.
And toward the end, it's like, okay, they get an idea of who I am, so I can say these things and it'll work better.
Yeah, I had a student who went up and did like this really kind of just a little bit hateful type of joke.
Yeah.
Anti-woman. It wasn't horrible. It was just kind of like women. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, he got up, he did that, and then as he further on, he was really funny. And I said, that first joke, I think if you did it almost toward the end, people have to like you first. I said, you're not likable with that joke at all. Later on, if you do it and it's kind of a side, we know you're joking, because I know you're joking now, but it's not coming across that way. And he still he did switch it. He put it toward the end, and then people laughed at it pretty hard. You know,
I find it. You remember I was teaching a class at Stand Up Live. Is that where it was? Anyway, yeah. One of the guys in that class, you remember, he came out and he's just like, it was very popular at the time to make fun of the Kardashians. I think that's who it was. And but he went way after but in a really hateful.
Yeah.
He thought it was funny, but he was just like, and I think at one point he even did something about killing her and spraying her blood all over the walls or some crazy.
Yeah.
And I remember going, do you know this woman? Why do you hate her so much?
Yeah.
I get the idea of I don't like her celebrity or persona, but I mean, and I thought people cannot relate to that level of hatred.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah. If it's Kardashians, if you like them or not, I mean, I don't watch the show. I know who they are. I don't have any interest in them. So there's no hatred there. It's just moving on.
Yeah.
To
and
care that much,
if you're going to be upset,
weird.
You can't be upset with them for, leveraging their fame the best they can. You could be upset with people that watch them if that's what you're inclined to do, to say, can't believe you idiots watch these people.
Yeah.
But I mean, come on. This is a guy who's trying to get a career in entertainment. Really, you'd make different decisions?
Yeah. This is your solution, is by killing this person?
Yeah. Your decisions wouldn't have been the same as theirs to leverage your fame.
The funny thing is, with you saying like he's talking about doing that, and it's like the joke wasn't a violent joke. It was just not. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, but yeah,
it was
that's
the realm of ridiculous.
The whole thing wasn't very violent in itself, but he added violent elements like for no reason. Anyway. Yeah, I don't get that where people, but they,
and it's not like saying I was that person walk off a cliff. Yeah, that's kind of tongue in cheek, but
I think the problem is comics like to go out there and they try to impersonate another comic or the level of intensity of another comic, because that comic feels strongly. You could go out there and try to be Bill Burr, but you don't have the same sentiment as him necessarily,
right?
And you can't match. And Bill Burr is Bill Burr. That's who he is. Right. If you talk to him personally, he's that way. Yeah. You can't pretend to be that.
Yeah.
No.
Do you know that Bill Burr and I are 10 days apart?
10 days apart, like 10 light days, or 10 days apart in birthday?
Birthday.
Oh, really?
Same year, everything.
Really?
We're so much alike. It's weird.
So why has your career not done what his has?
I think it's because where I live.
I think as you get older, more and more times you see younger people that are very successful or very, even like politicians that are way up there or whatever. I think, wow, they're so much younger than me. They're older.
Honestly, and I think a lot of people have talked about this, probably comics too, and things. I'm sure somebody's got this bit, but it's true that the first time you go to the doctor and the doctor's younger than you, it's like, it's just weird.
Yeah.
Like my cardiologist is like 40,
just a baby.
Yeah. It's just like, okay. You know what you're doing? You really know?
All right. Well, we could probably wrap this up. I just want to make sure we got caught up here.
We covered it. I think the world's a better place for it.
I think you're right. I think the world is a better place for it. I know I'm a better person.
Yeah. You look taller.
Thank you. So join us next week when we have a special guest. Lauren Michaels on with us or somebody.
Right.
We'll
Who
see.
cares?
We'll see.
We'll see. Who knows?
All right, man.
All right, Mike. So you have no shows this week to promote. That's good. Okay.
Not for a couple weeks, but make sure you go to MikeJamesComedy.com to see my schedule. We have shows coming up, and BrianKohatsu.com.
Yeah. And then Mike, hold on after the podcast. Join us on YouTube for a post show. No, I'm kidding.
This whole thing is a post show.
Join us for the afternoon chat where we talk about the morning laugh.
And don't forget to email Mike at MikeJamesComedy.com for a full transcript of the show.
Yes. And if you'd like to be a guest,
if you or you know somebody
PO box
who has suffered from earlobe extensions, we'd like to talk to them.
And if you'd like a copy of the home game, please send a self-addressed envelope to Morning Show Game.
This show has been brought to you by Palmolive.
You're soaking in it.
That's right. All right. I'll hang on, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right, man. Later. Everyone have a wonderful day, afternoon, and good night.